Welcome to the KZGN News. Today we're bringing news about a detailed rundown of the weekend's Petroglyph Festival. Are you ready for another Republican debate? What the Navy is doing in the South China Sea, today's gas prices, weather, sports, and much more.
From the Rademacher Hills to Bee Mountain and the mighty Sierras, Ridgecrest to Inyokern and China Lake, this is your news for the Indian Wells Valley with the KZGN News crew.
Hello, I'm Tom Whitney. Thanks for joining us for the news affecting Ridgecrest and the Indian Wells Valley. Well, did you go to the Petroglyph Festival over the weekend? What a great weekend we had. We had the Petroglyph Festival all weekend. The Nas Open House was great, the Intertribal Powwow was great, and the Gem and Mineral Show was fantastic. All reports show a great turnout for all the events. Turns out the RICB turned out another great event, the second annual Petroglyph Festival. We don't have numbers of visitors yet, but I went out to most of the events on Saturday and they seemed well attended. Hats off to Doug Luke, Mike Thomas, and everyone that helped out. Well, are you ready for another Republican debate? The next one is hosted by Fox Business Network, not to be confused with the Fox News Network. By the way, the Democrats have still not accepted a debate invite from Fox News or Fox Business yet. Wonder why. Anyway, this next debate will be on Tuesday. It is again broken into two debates. The first lower-tier debate will start at 4 p.m. our time. The second debate will start at 6 p.m. our time. I believe the groups have been broken down to only the top 8 will be at 6 p.m. The candidates qualifying for the primetime debate are billionaire businessman Donald Trump, retired neurosurgeon Ben Carson, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, former HP CEO Carly Fiorina, Ohio Governor John Kasich, and Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. The candidates qualifying for the earlier debate are New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal, and former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum. To qualify for the primetime debate, a candidate had to score 2.5% or higher in an average of the 4 most recent national polls. Candidates scoring under that had to receive at least 1% support in at least one of the 4 most recent national polls to qualify for the early debate. The 4 polls used were conducted by Fox News, Investors Business Daily, Quinnipiac, and the Wall Street Journal NBC News poll. The candidates headed into the next debate at a time when Trump and Carson are battling for the lead in most polls. While several recent state and national surveys have shown Carson climbing into the top spot, the latest Fox News poll released Wednesday showed Trump with an edge 26-23% nationally. The Fox Business Network debate, presented in partnership with the Wall Street Journal, will focus on jobs, taxes, and the economy, as well as other issues. It will be held at the Milwaukee Theater in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Well, have you heard President Obama is still trying to accomplish one of his campaign goals? He wants to close the Guantanamo Bay Detention Center. This is a military prison where detainees have been held since the Iraq War. The only roadblock is that the move would first require congressional approval. They have to approve the selection of a U.S. prison to take the Guantanamo prisoners to, which lawmakers have said is not likely to happen. According to the New York Times, a Pentagon plan outlining the closure is expected this week. The plan reportedly includes moving the remaining prisoners to Centennial Correctional Facility in Colorado or other sites in South Carolina and Kansas. The plan also details transportation and facility costs that may go along with the detainees if moved. The facility now houses 112 detainees. Approval by Congress is not expected. If Congress says no, we will once again see if Obama's illegal use of executive power comes out. It will be interesting to see what the White House will do. In world news, if you haven't heard yet, China is trying to expand their territorial claims in the South China Sea. They are actually building new islands way out into the sea to do this, and they are basing military components on these islands. The United States has declared they do not recognize this attempt to expand the Chinese area. Recently, a U.S. Navy ship entered the area. Here's a report of the event. Commander Robert Francis Jr. told reporters that USS Lassen patrolled within about 6 or 7 miles of Subi Reef in the Spratly Islands, well within the 12-mile territorial limit now claimed by China. Francis said the crew of a Chinese destroyer that shadowed the Lassen for several days contacted the ship with a standard query about what the lesson was doing. Francis said his crew replied that it was operating in international waters in accord with international law. But the Chinese pressed the matter, he said, by repeating the query over and over. All of our interactions were very professional, Francis said. I never felt threatened. Francis said the Lassen has had about 50 interactions with Chinese military planes and ships on its patrols in the South and East China Seas since May. The commander described that amount of contact as routine. Francis said that as the Chinese destroyer that had been shadowing the Lassen in the artificial islands turned away, they said, "Hey, we're not going to be with you anymore. Wish you a pleasant voyage. Hope to see you again." So that's our Navy at work in the South China Sea. Has everyone been hearing about the new emphasis to make smart handguns? Smart guns would limit that only the owner of the gun could use the gun. That would mean that if I had a gun and we had our house broken into and I was not able to get to the gun for whatever reason, my wife would not be able to protect herself using my gun. She would be left defenseless. Well, the biggest flaw in the smart gun theory is the same thing that some people desire. A smart gun can only be used by the owner of the gun. While some think that is a great idea, especially when it comes to kids getting access to guns, the smart gun would stop kids from being able to use one if they needed it. Here are some real-life instances where kids getting guns saved their lives. Stories the anti-gun media doesn't want people to hear. A 10-year-old boy left home alone with his sister used his mother's gun to shoot an intruder in the face. Police said, deputies say Dean Favron and Roderick Porter knocked several times on the apartment door. The two young children, a 10-year-old boy and 8-year-old girl, stood on the other side, terrified. He told his sister to be quiet, and seconds later they started kicking on the door and finally kicked the door in, said Sheriff Mike Gaze. The two children ran to their mother's bedroom closet. In a panic, the 10-year-old grabbed his mother's gun for protection. He did what I told him to do, she said. I never told him to get the gun, but thank God he did, she said. Once the two suspects opened the door, threatening the kids, deputies say the boy fired a bullet into the lip of Roderick Porter. The two men were taken to the hospital by a third suspect, who was a 15-year-old juvenile. Once they got to the hospital, they were arrested. It's just hard. I don't understand why they would do that. I know they have little brothers and sisters. They wouldn't want anyone to break into their houses, said the mother. Here's another story. A 12-year-old girl did what she had to do to protect herself from an intruder in her home on the Texas border. Authorities said the preteen was home alone when the suspect rang the doorbell. When she didn't answer, deputies said, the man went around the back of the house and kicked in the door. At that point, the girl grabbed a gun and hid in a closet. He had worked all the way through the house and into the bathroom, Bryan County Under Sheriff Ken Golder said. And from what we understand, he was turning the doorknob when she fired through the door. Crews said she remained calm and called for help after she shot the intruder. And here's one more story the anti-gun folks don't want you to hear. 3 burglars in a suburban neighborhood in Albuquerque, New Mexico, got more than they bargained for from 11-year-old resident Alyssa Gutierrez. Since Gutierrez's cousin left her alone in the house only moments earlier, she initially dismissed the sound of the door handle rattling as her cousin trying to scare her. In response, she turned up the volume on the television to ignore him. When 3 teenage burglars forced open the door with a crowbar and entered the residence, Gutierrez slid down from the couch where she had been seated in an attempt to hide. The masked intruder spotted her, and she realized that one of them was carrying a rifle. Gutierrez ran to his mother's bedroom and retrieved a .22 caliber rifle with a pink stock. The bolt-action rifle was loaded with only 2 rounds. Gutierrez, who had learned to shoot just days earlier, said, I was planning if they came right next to me, I would shoot them. These are real stories. In all these cases, and there are hundreds more out there, these children would have been defenseless and maybe be statistics of children deaths at the hands of bad people. In these and hundreds of similar cases of people using someone else's gun to defend themselves, a smart gun would have left them defenseless. and it's being reported by many media this morning that Obama put out a dictate over the weekend that gun control is the last thing he wants to accomplish. He gave no specifics as to what he is wanting to do, but said something needs to be done. That's the normal call of the anti-gun people. They don't know what to do, but they just have to do something, anything, and then see if it works. But the pro-gun people declare the only thing the president wants to do will do nothing to curb the tragedies that we have seen this year. Making guns harder to get for law-abiding people wouldn't change anything. It's a mental health issue that needs to be addressed. But the president has yet to propose anything to fix the real problem. And it's also being reported that Hillary Clinton is going to make it an election issue. She's ready to take on the NRA. She has stated that the NRA is the #1 most dangerous security issue for the United States. I wish the moderators at the next Democrat debate would ask her if she insists her security team goes unarmed, and if all the guards that surround her residence are unarmed. In news from China Lake Weapons Division, we get this report of NOC-WD employees visiting the Marine Corps Air Station at Miramar and the USS Boxer. This report is submitted by Paul Dosen. Platforms such as the Engineer and Scientist Development Program and the Fleet Engagement and Tactical Engineer Development Program are finding more opportunities to get the Naval Air Warfare Center Weapons Division workforce interacting with the warfighters. These people use the technology that they develop here. To add to the growing number of programs, the Logistics and Industrial Operations Group at NOC-WD China Lake recently completed their 4th Marine Corps Air Station at Miramar and United States Ship Tour in San Diego on October 7th and 8th. Paul Dosen, Rolling Airframe Missile and Service Engineering Agent Lead, was the recent tour coordinator. The tour began with visits to the Marine Aviation Logistics Squadron 11, where they explored the bomb missile, gun and support equipment shops, aircraft armament equipment pool storage, and weapons assembly areas. They also received an F-18 aircraft weapons system brief and tour at Marine Fighter Attack Training Squadron 101. The next day was just as impressive as the NOC-WD workforce got a chance to visit the mighty warship USS Boxer. They toured and received briefs involving weapon storage, movement and assembly, from the flight to the well decks to the ship's magazines. The group logged some miles during this tour. The ship's crew educated the group on all the logistics involved from receiving weapons to their eventual deployment in action. During both visits, the warfighters expressed their appreciation of the NOC-WD employees for their opportunity to communicate directly with the people involved in current sustainment and production of the weapons they operate daily. This was truly a learning experience for all. The program was initially developed as a training platform for new employees to meet the warfighters firsthand and get a better understanding of their operational requirements. It has turned into an awaited occurrence by many NOC-WD employees and warfighters. The regularly scheduled tour popularity has grown to the point of having a wait list to attend across all areas of NOC-WD. Now, in KZGN's continuous effort to provide news and information you've asked for, here are today's gas prices for Ridgecrest and some surrounding areas. Well, since my report on Friday, gas prices are still unchanged locally and sit at $2.89 per gallon. What's unusual is the high here is only 10 cents more than the low. Usually there is a much wider split. As of this morning, Ridgecrest is ranging from $2.89 to $2.99, Lancaster from $2.69 to $3.09, the LA Valley area $2.65 to $2.95, and the Bishop area $3.18 to $3.37. We still have 5 stations coming in at the $2.89 figure. It appears prices have stopped any real movement. Tune in Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for updates. We at KZGN always suggest you shop locally to support our local economy. Remember, when you pay sales tax out of town, you are helping those cities pave their streets instead of here. Now stay tuned for weather and sports when we come back. Thanks for staying with us. Let's go to Lane for the weather.
Thank you, Tom. From the National Weather Service, rain will expand into the central Appalachians and much of the mid-Atlantic region on Monday as a storm system develops near the coast of the Carolinas. Heavy rainfall amounts of 1 to 4 inches are forecasted for the eastern portions of the Florida Panhandle northward, along the southeast U.S. coastline to the southern mid-Atlantic. Flash flooding will be possible in some of these areas. Temperatures across the nation. Carolinas at 72, Georgia at 50, Arkansas at 65, northern Texas at 69, Arizona at 74, and Los Angeles at 65. And for us locally, tonight, a 20% chance of showers, mostly cloudy with a low around 42, southwest wind 20 to 25 miles per hour with gusts as high as 30. Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 59, west-northwest wind 10 miles per hour with gusts as high as 15. Tuesday night, mostly clear with a low around 34, west wind 5 miles per hour. And for Veterans Day, sunny with a high near 60, northwest wind 5 miles per hour. And for that night, mostly clear with a low around 35, west wind 5 miles per hour. And for Thursday, sunny with a high near 65, northwest wind 5 miles per hour. Thursday night, mostly clear with a low around 39, northeast wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. And Friday, sunny with a high near 67, east-northeast wind 5 miles per hour. And that is your forecast for the IWV. Now back to Tom.
Thanks, Lane. Now let's go to Tom Heck with sports.
And a very pleasant Monday evening to everyone. Let's start with Burroughs High School football. The Burroughs dropped a very tough game in Phelan on Friday night. The final score, 47-20. Burroughs played a very good first quarter, down 7-6, but 4 turnovers, 5 in the whole game, costly to Burroughs. 3 of those turnovers they cashed in the last 4.5 minutes of the second quarter. The score was 33-6 at halftime, and Burroughs came out, scored a couple times in the second half to make it look more respectable, but Serrano in the end gets the win. They are the Mojave River League champions. Burroughs will be in the playoffs. They will play at a site to be determined this coming Friday night. So you can stay tuned, read the Daily Independent. They'll have all the results for you. It'll be Burroughs against an unnamed opponent on Friday night on the road. All right, junior high volleyball over at the college this weekend. Had some very, very competitive games and things. And stay tuned tomorrow. We'll review who won and who lost there. But I want to spend our last few minutes on some college football, some very big games on Saturday afternoon. Stanford beat Colorado. Boy, Stanford playing a lot better. Barely survived up at the Palouse. They beat Washington State last week. Louisville beat Syracuse. Florida barely gets by Vanderbilt. Florida comes in number 11. They beat Vandy. They clinch the SEC with that win. Number 19, Georgia, a winner over Kentucky. Notre Dame, a winner over Pitt. And West Virginia beats Texas Tech. Penn State had only lost 2 football games all year. They lose to Northwestern 23-21. The Wildcats number 20 in the nation. Number 22, BYU survives San Jose State 17-16. And Temple pounds SMU 60-40. All right, volleyball over the last couple days. The Saracoso team lost a very close 3-game match Friday against Rio Hondo. And congrats to the boys' freshman football team. They defeated Serrano 28-21 last Thursday. JV's losing 42-0. You can listen to Todd Mather on Thursday night. He'll be talking about the playoff game. Also, he'll be going over the game at Serrano that we played last Friday night. That is your sports for this Monday evening. I'm Tom Heck for KZGN.
So that's the news for today. Also, KZGN-TV know you have a choice in what you watch for your news. We all thank you for choosing KZGN-TV, Ridgecrest's only locally owned community TV station. Now stay tuned for Ridgecrest Talk coming up next. And here's a quick clip of Dachshunds at Work.